Everyone, in today's tutorial I want to show you how you can convert assets that are not supported by the Vegetation Engine to work with the Vegetation Engine. When I say assets that are not supported by the Vegetation Engine, it means that there isn't a preset for the prefab converter, so we can simply convert it, but instead some more work will be needed to make these assets compatible with the Vegetation Engine. If we look at the banana tree on the left, you can see that a custom shader is used, and it has all the standard maps like the albedo map, normal map, metallic smoothness map, an occlusion map. We have a subsurface map with some subsurface intensity and color, and we have a leaf wind mask which is empty on all the shaders and it is not used. If we look at the prefab, it has a bit of wind animation, and the first thing you can try is to open the converter and try the automatic conversion. So let's do that. I will choose the automatic tree preset for it and let's convert. Once converted, as you can see, the materials are all broken. We have a bit of bending animation, but that's about it. So let's see how we can get from a broken conversion to something that is usable with the Vegetation Engine. And on the right side, I have the same prefab converted. I had to manually add some masks and to pack some textures, but in the end, as you can see, we have some nice wind animation. We have this nice looking subsurface scattering, and I added a bit of blending on the bark on the bottom part. Of meshes, let's see what kind of data is packed in the TV meshes. If you go to the advanced settings, under the mesh settings section, you will see a bunch of masks that are added to the Vegetation Engine meshes. To visualize this data, let's go to the window, Boxophobic, the Vegetation Engine, Scene Debugger, and under the mesh attributes, we can visualize the common vertex position, normals, tangents, and so on. And we can see that we have a vertex color red, which in TV is the variation. The variation is used for the wind animation and for some various other effects, and it is a per branch variation including the leaves. The vertex color green is storing the vertex occlusion. The vertex color blue is storing the detail mask, which is used to blend the detail textures with the bark texture, and in this case it is a gradient from white to black at the top of the tree. So we can blend those textures only on the bottom part of the bark. The vertex alpha is a height mask used for the gradient tinting, and we have the wind masks. So we have the motion primary mask, which is a height mask, and it is used for bending. We have the second mask, which is the used for branch animation, and we have the motion detail mask, which is used to add the flutter to the leaves. If we go back to the converter, we can see that for each of these data, we can choose the source from where we get that mask. For instance, for this variation, we can use the variation from a mesh channel. We can add a procedural mask, or we can even use a texture to transfer the color from the texture to the mesh mask. Now, you might ask, do we need all this data added to the TV meshes? And the answer is not really. But having more data will result in more accurate wind animation. For instance, we might not have the variation, it is not a problem, the wind will work, but we will not be able to use some higher quality animation, or for instance, you might not need the occlusion source or the detail mask source because you don't want to add any blending for the bark. And in most cases, even if we don't have some of the masks, we can use some procedural data, but the animation will be a bit lower quality. Alright, let's go back to the conversion. I duplicated the original prefab and we'll convert this one on the right. And I just keep the original prefab around so we have a reference. I will open the converter and convert using the automatic tree preset again. So as we saw earlier, the textures are lost. Let's see what else happened here. So if we open the materials, we can see that the bark is assigned for all the materials. That happens because TV cannot detect which part of this mesh is a leaf or a bark. The second thing to note here is that TV managed to get the normal map, but not the albedo map or the mask. That happens because TV is getting the material properties by name. And if we go to the original shader, you can see that the normal map is named internally bump map, which is a common naming convention for the normal map in Unity. So TV can get this map, but the albedo map, for instance, is called texture 1. So there is no way for the prefab converter to detect this name. The automatic conversion is expecting some default Unity materials where the albedo is called main text, for instance. And since this is called texture 1, it cannot get it. Let's go back to the materials and assign the correct shaders and the textures. If we look at the original material, the original prefab, it has three materials. We have the bark material, we have the leaves material, and we have this green part, which is the base of the leaves. So this leaves material is using the subsurface scattering, so we will treat these leaves in TV as leaves, so we will use the leaf shader. And for this green part, I can see that the subsurface scattering is used again. So for these two materials, I will use the leaf shader, and the bark, I will keep the bark shader. So this is the material green part, so I will change it to leaf subsurface lead. The second one is the leaves, so I will change it to the leaves shader. Alright, and the bark will remain to the bark shader. Alright, let's assign the albedo texture. So for this green part, this albedo texture is used. So I will just drag it to the albedo field. For the leaves, I need to find the leaf albedo texture. All right. And for the bark, we need the bark albedo texture. All right. So we can simply reassign these textures, but for the main mask, we will need to pack those metallic, occlusion, and subsurface maps. We will pack them in one texture so TV can use them. In order to do that, I found a free tool called Texture Combiner on the Unity Asset Store, and let's open it from TF Tools, Texture Combiner. So the in TV, the mask texture is packing 4 channels together to optimize the texture usage. The red channel is the metallic map, the green channel is the occlusion map, the blue channel for leaves is the subsurface map, and for the bark is a height map in case you want to blend the textures together. And the alpha is the subsurface mask. In order to use this tool, we will need to make the textures readable. That's super easy. You just need to select the textures and enable read write and apply. All right. And as you can see, this texture is not a square texture. It is 512 by 1K. So we'll need to change the texture size to this, and you need to unlink this this texture packing, because if they are linked, all the channels will be filled by the texture assigned to the red channel. So I will unlink those channels, and let's drag the textures. So I said that the red channel is the metallic. In this case, the metallic smoothness texture, it has the metallic map in the red channel, which is black in this case, and the smoothness in the alpha channel. All right, so let's drag it to this slot. And we will use the red channel for this one. Okay, for the occlusion, we can drag the texture here, and we can use any of the channels, because if you go to the occlusion map, all the channels are the same. So in this case, I will just use the green channel, but any channel will work. For the blue, I will drag the leaf subsurface map, and we will use the blue because, again, in RGB all the channels are the same for this texture. And for the alpha, for the smoothness, I will drag again the metallic smoothness texture, and we will use the alpha channel because we want to get the smoothness from the alpha channel. All right, and let's simply export. I will save it to the textures folder, and I will save it as leaf pack mask. All right, and save it. Okay, I can close the um, texture combiner and set back the textures to read write disabled. All right, and now I can go to my leaves material and assign this leaf packed mask. Alright, let's check the other textures if we need to pack any other textures. So as you can see, for the bark only the albedo and the normal is used, and we already assigned them. For the leaves, we assigned the albedo map, the normal map, and we packed these textures together. And for the green part, we only have the albedo map. So the texture packing and the texture assigning is done. All we need to do is to tweak the material settings. So let's get to them one by one. As you can see, this green part in TV is a bit brighter than the original material, so I will simply set the main color to a grayish color. Alright, maybe we need to tweak the smoothness a bit. Alright, for the leaves material, as you can see, we need to set it double-sided, so the render faces will need to be set to both, and the alpha is not working. That's because the alpha clipping is off. So I will set the alpha clipping to 1, and it is already looking quite close to the original. Maybe we can set the main normal to something a bit higher, so we have a bit more detail. Let's see the subsurface intensity, but by default it is looking quite good already. Maybe for the green part we need to lower the subsurface a bit, something like this, because it is a bit thicker. Alright, and let's go to the bark material. And again, it is a bit brighter than the original. So I will set the main color to a grayish color. And as you can see, the tiling is not the same. If I go to the original material, the tiling is set on the x axis to 0.5 and on the y to 1. So in TV, the tiling is controlled by the main UVs, and on the X, oops, not this material, on the X we need to lower this tiling to 0.5. Alright, and now we have the same tiling. I will decrease the smoothness a bit. Alright, and let's enable the detail. So I will set it to on. I want this detail to be overlaid over the bark textures, and I have this texture over here. Let's find it. Trunk albedo. All right, and maybe tweak the height a bit, something like this, and it is looking quite good already. All right, the materials are set. They are looking quite good. Of course, you can go ahead and tweak the materials even more. And for the next part, we will take care of the wind animation. Check the wind data baked into the mesh. So I will open the scene debugger again and check the motion primary mask. This is a height map. This is correct. This is used for bending, and it is looking fine. For the motion second mask, which should be the branches, we have some mask which is looking okayish, but ideally we have black in the middle and only white on the edges of the leaves. So we move these branches, and for the details mask we have almost the same mask, or probably the same mask, but ideally we would have a mask on the edges of the leaves. So what we can do in this case? Uh, First of all, we can use some better procedural masks, because if I open the prefab converter, uh, for the height mask, for the primary mask, a height mask is used, but for the second and for the details source, the UV0 y-axis is used. This is, if you select the texture, this is from the bottom of the textures to the texture to the top of the texture. So this is the mask used by the automatic tree mask. So we could choose some better procedural masks, but let's check if the original mesh has any masks baked into the mesh that we can use. So usually this wind data is baked in the vertex colors. So let's check the vertex colors for the original prefab if we can get something usable. If I go to the vertex red, as you can see, we have the leaves edge mask. So this is usable in TVE. If I open the converter, I can go to the advanced settings, and for the motion details source, I will choose the channel and go to the vertex red channel. So we will get from the original mesh the red channel for the details motion, so for the flutter motion. Alright, let's go to the green channel, and in the green channel, as you can see, we have the per branch variation, and for the variation source for our prefab, we will choose a channel and choose the green channel. Alright, in the blue channel, we have the branch mask. So for the second source, which is moving the branches, we will go to channel again and choose the vertex blue channel. And let's see what's in the vertex alpha. In the vertex alpha, we have the ambient occlusion. So we can go to the occlusion source, and instead of procedural, we can go to channel and choose the alpha channel. For the details mask, I will use the same bottom to top mask which was already set, and it is working fine. This is for the blending. Alright, and let's convert again. I will choose to keep the converted materials, because if you don't keep the converted materials, you will need to go and reassign all the textures and retweak the materials. So I will keep the converted materials, and TV will only convert the meshes in this case. So let's convert again. And now if I go back to the motion settings, to the motion second mask, if you remember, previously we had some more or less broken mask, but now, since we choose the blue channel from the original mesh, now we have a proper mask for the branches. And if you go to the motion detail mask, we have the proper edge mask for the flutter. All right, so let's see how the motion looks in this case. We'll simply open the material settings and tweak the motion parameters a bit. Okay, we have the flutter, but the second rolling is not working. Why is this happening? By default, because when we converted the mesh, the meshes were set to the bark texture, the rolling is actually disabled. So you will need to, not in all the cases, but sometimes the converter decides to disable this use motion, second motion settings. Those cases are when the branch mask and the leaves mask is the same, then the converter will disable the second motion. So I will re-enable the second motion for all the materials, and now we have some nice wind animation. Now let's get back to real life. This mesh, the original mesh was exported from Treat, and Treat bakes all that wind data nicely in the mesh. But if you get any asset from the store, you will most likely don't have any of the wind data in the mesh. In most cases, the UVs are used for the motion, and we don't have any branch data or any variation. So let's see how we can bake those meshes without any wind data. Let's open the converter again and go full procedural. So for the variation, since we don't have any variation, we can use a procedural variation, but in this case, because those branches are not connected to the leaves, TV will add a different variation to them. So having a different variation will not really work. So in this case, we can simply disable it because it won't be usable anyways. All right. For the occlusion, since we don't use it, I will set it to none. For the detail mask, we leave it as it is. And for the motion primary source, I will use the procedural height mask, which is already used and it is working properly. For the second source, I will go with a procedural mask, and I will choose a cylindrical mask. This cylindrical mask will add black to the middle and white to the edges. So imagine these three encapsulated in a cylinder where the middle of the cylinder is black and the edges are white. And for the motion details, we can simply paint a texture to use it for the edges of the leaves, because we cannot choose anything procedurally to add white to the edges of the leaves. So let's choose a texture, and we will need to paint that texture in Photoshop. So I will go to the textures, duplicate the albedo texture. I will name it leaf wind mask and open it in Photoshop, or if you have any other editing tool, that's fine. And I will paint a black and white texture for the edges. So let's see, where is the brush? And I will simply paint black in the middle, just roughly paint it out. It doesn't need to be super accurate. All right, something like this. We will bake it and see how it looks after that. Okay, maybe the edge should be white. All right, save the texture. Okay, and let's go back. And let's choose this leaf wind mask, and we can choose any of the channels because all the channels are the same. Okay, and convert. I will again keep the converted materials because I don't want to tweak them again. Okay, let's convert them, and now if I open the scene debugger again and check the detail mask, as you can see, I didn't do a good job on this one. So it looks like we have to paint some more black in the middle, and we need to have more white on the edges, so the these vertices are actually white. Okay, so I go back and maybe more white. Let's make this one something like this. Okay, save it again. And reconvert. Okay, yeah, this is looking pretty good, and it is quite close to the original mask we have uh, in the red channel of the original mesh. So I think this is something usable. All right, and for the second mask, we have this cylindrical mask. We don't have any variation, so we should be good. The only problem in this case is that we need to tweak the settings again. So we have that flutter, and we need to disable the flutter for the green part. Because we don't have any variation, we can set the variation settings to 0. And for the green part, I will need to go and disable the flutter motion. And now it should look quite okay. What we can do for the rolling, can open the settings again, add a bit more rolling and increase the second scale, so we add a bit of wobbly motion. So even if we don't have any wind masks, we can get away with it. We can use some procedural masks. We can paint some textures if needed. And if we have any of the data packed in the original mesh, we can get that data and bake it to the TVE mesh. Alright, I know this tutorial was a bit more technical than usual, but I wanted to show you that basically almost any mesh can be converted to the Vegetation Engine, even if there isn't a preset for it. And we need to be realistic with tens of thousands of assets on the store. I cannot create presets for everything. Plus we have the 3 render pipelines, and the shaders might be different for all those pipelines. So instead of creating only one preset, I need to go in all the pipelines and check all the shaders and create those presets for all the pipelines. So it is a bit unrealistic to have presets for everything. But with this approach, you can basically convert any asset to the Vegetation Engine. For the second part of the tutorial, we will automate this process we did manually by writing some presets. I hope it was a useful tutorial, and see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.